Our talkback lawyer David Whiting is here to help you as the familiar tones of Perry Mason, the theme song to a long-forgotten television lawyer, disappear into the distance. 1300 222 774 is the number if you've got a question for our talkback lawyer David Whiting. 1300 222 774. David, good morning to you.
Good morning, John.
Can you remember who you appeared for last year or the year before?
As a lawyer, I think one of the things that you've got to have going for you is a good memory.
Can you remember who your clients were from 2 years ago?
Oh, my view would be if you asked me to recite them, I would fail.
No, but if someone said, did you act for John Fane
in relation to something?
Did you act for John Fane 2 years ago in relation to
an X or a Y or a Z? The answer would be yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, apparently you're much better off then than a young female lawyer called Reem Nassef, who is being examined publicly by the federal court over a $100 million scam.
Yep.
And she claims she doesn't remember anything about what she was doing. Even when documents are put in front of her with her signature on them, she doesn't remember them.
Well, can I say, John, when I saw that scared me silly because told the court she couldn't remember any clients she'd ever had.
Ever. Yep.
Right? And when I go home at night, I forget everything I did during the course of the day.
Yes.
So her diary notes must be extraordinary.
Yep.
And asked if she could recall going to court, given she rarely went to court. Her answer was, I don't recall.
She's looking at a change of career, I suspect.
Well, my I see that lawyers survive on their memory. You've got to remember what somebody said to you an hour ago or a week ago or a month ago in relation to a matter that you've got current.
Well, this is a $100 million scam of what's called phoenixing companies with fake directors and people who can't pay the debts of a company. And she's said to be one of the crucial lawyers involved in this scam. And in being cross-examined about it, she has no information she can help the court with whatsoever. So she would be absolutely lined up, I would have thought, for a claim of unprofessional conduct, misconduct, or being unfit to practice. I would have thought she's looking to change careers.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that lots of those allegations will be made. It's really a question for the regulator as to whether they're made out or not. But I am truly amazed. I mean, I quite frankly wouldn't hire a lawyer who couldn't remember what they did yesterday. But
she shouldn't be allowed to. She shouldn't be allowed to practice. If indeed, on the face of this information here, she's unfit to practice, then the regulator simply must act, or they're a mockery.
Well, yeah, you could come along and say, there's a question of your fitness to carry on practice if you can't remember what you did today.
Well, if that's the standard that we're prepared to accept.
Oh, well, I certainly know no firm I've ever worked for, John, would that be anywhere near an appropriate standard?
The community doesn't accept that that's an acceptable standard for someone who wants to practice law and be an officer of the court. I don't see why anyone should put up with that nonsense for a second.
Well, assuming everything she says to be true, John, the answer would be I wouldn't want them anywhere near any of my clients.
Did you see the Financial Review last Friday? WorkCover have announced they're investigating one of Australia's biggest law firms, Kingwood and Mallisons.
Yeah, I saw that. And can I say, I quite frankly, I know of some other law firms who have also got matters who are acting for people before the Royal Commission into banking, and the demands being made by the staff of the Royal Commission are extraordinary.
So the lawyers working for the biggest law firm around, Kingwood Mallisons, who are acting for some of the banks, they're being required to work 7 days a week round the clock and sleeping in the office, being fed in the office. They're basically being...
I do know that there are some law firms that actually have beds at the office, so that can be accommodated.
Yep.
But John...
So WorkCover investigating whether or not indeed these are unsafe work practices.
Yep. And the answer is they probably are. So, but in a part, the answer would be the only way you can meet the requirements of the assessed position is the only way you can meet the demands of the Royal Commission in terms of production and delivery of documents is by working all night and all weekend.
Hire more lawyers.
Share
the workload, delegate more, employ more people, bring them in.
I think they do that as well, John.
Well, clearly then there has to be, other than saying, oh, well, can't help it, sorry, we're unavoidably caught here, there has to be some other way of managing the challenge.
I think you're right. So, but I would be. I mean, perhaps if the Royal Commission had some more time, that the pressure might be slightly less.
And in breaking news, an American judge has just dismissed a defamation lawsuit against Donald Trump brought by the former porn actor Stormy Daniels. She sued Donald Trump over defamation.
Yes.
Over disputes over who was telling the truth, and she's lost.
We need to know why, though. There's a suggestion that you don't sue sitting presidents.
I'm sure she will reveal all. That's what she's been doing all her life.
Okay. Now, John, last week we talked, Barry gave us a call, and Barry was upset about providing a copy of his driver's licence, to police.
Yep.
And he asked what were his obligations in terms of make available for inspection. So it took me some time, but Section 59 of the Road Safety Act says that a driver or person in charge of a motor vehicle has a duty to stop the motor vehicle, produce for inspection his or her driver licence or learner permit, and state his or her name and address if requested or signalled to do so by a police officer, and to obey any lawful direction given by a police officer. And a police officer may give such reasonable direction to a person driving or in charge of a motor vehicle as are, in the opinion of that police officer, necessary.
So produce for inspection.
You must produce for inspection.
It comes down to your definition.
A lawful direction.
So what's your definition of inspection?
No. And obey a lawful direction that the police officer believes is necessary.
So on Barry's behalf, I'll argue that if the only power they have is that you have to produce your licence for inspection, a request to physically hand it over is beyond their power, and it's not therefore a lawful exercise.
There's 3 steps. Produce for inspection, follow a lawful direction, and that the police officer thinks is necessary.
Such other steps as necessary.
So if the police officer believes that it's necessary in terms of inspecting the licence, that it be handed over and held by the police officer,
then they're within their power to do so.
Then they're within their power to insist.
Okay.
And my last one, John, is a forward promote for you.
Hey? Can't do that.
Well, okay, but there is a... on Wednesday, the 24th of October next week, the Victorian Law Foundation is talking about the sport and the law.
Yes.
And the questions that they're putting up for debate is the application of the law to the sporting field.
Yep.
Now, I don't think that we've really talked about the law in the sporting field for a long time, and there was one footballer who got charged with assault.
Lee Matthews.
Yep, but
long time ago.
And there are one could argue that there are some other matters that happen from time to time on a court, on a football field, which if they happened somewhere else would be grounds for charges.
Quite rightly.
And you're talking about something along those lines on Thursday.
On the conversation now to, in fact, bring to a broader audience the debate that the Law Foundation's putting on for an invited audience. Excellent.
So you've got Rob Starry and Bridie O'Donnell.
Oh, have we?
Yes.
You know more about what I'm doing than I do.
John, I'm ghosting you. That's what it is.
Excellent. Well, if I am required to...
So if you're going to get a personal safety intervention order against me is the next thing.
If you've got nothing else to do, you're welcome to come along too. Shall we get to today's callers? 1300 222 774 if you've got a question for David. Cecile's first in Montmorency. Good morning, Cecile.
Good morning, David and John.
Cecile, far away.
Hi. So it's kind of topical because I was attacked about a month ago by a what I believe is a Staffy Cross Mastiff dog on our high street in Montmorency,
just
outside the shops.
Are you okay now?
I'm okay. I've got 3 broken fingers. So basically, very quickly, I was walking my greyhound, who has been a dog that does not even care about other dogs, and with my 10-year-old. So we had the greyhound on 2 leashes, as GAP have advised us to do. And because I
Sorry, whoa, I don't understand. You've got 1 dog, but 2 leashes?
Yeah, with greyhounds, children are not allowed to walk them on their own.
Okay.
So my boys want to be part of the whole experience, so they hold the leash, the second leash. So we actually had 2 leashes, but that's not really the problem. So basically, walking down to get to the station, literally pedestrian crossing, 5 minutes from home, outside the shops, and I see those 2 dogs that are seemingly tied to a post, and I know I have to walk past them. I have shopping in one hand, so I, of course, loop this leash around my other hand, which I know is not advised. However, I just wanted to keep my dog close to me, just thinking if those dogs get a bit excited, I can walk past. As expected, they lunged and barked at my dog, and one of them got loose and literally just barreled into my dog, grabbed him by the throat.
Cecile, I know this must have been very distressing, and I'm sorry. Do you want a moment? Do you need some time?
I'll be fine. No, I'll be okay. So what happened is the owner of those dogs came out of the shop, grabbed his dog, thank God, from my screaming. We just sort of were a bit petrified, and I had loads of people helping me and witnessed it. But basically what the long and short of it is, I did a report to the council, to the rangers. It now transpires that the ranger who told me when she came to take my reports that they would be looking at seizing and possibly destroying the dog, or at least, doing something.
Yes.
They're now saying it's a small offence, and they would only issue an infringement notice because my dog was not injured enough.
Yes.
But I got 3 broken fingers and surgery, and so my question is really twofold. One, how do I counter the council's decision? Because I don't feel safe.
Right.
Knowing that those dogs are not even they're not being muzzled or anything. They could be in my community again. And the second question is, if I wanted to, where do I go to pursue for damages, at least for my out-of-pocket expenses from surgery and things
Cecile,
like that?
you would make your application for damages in the Magistrates Court.
Okay.
What I'm going to ask you to do is I'll take the question on notice and give you a detailed answer next week. All right?
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about what you ought to do in terms of encouraging the council to take it up properly, or to your requirements and your claim for personal injury.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cecile.
So
There would be an obligation on any dog owner to be...
The dog
in
owner
charge
is responsible.
And you're in charge of... You have to be in charge and in control of your dog at all times.
Yes.
Full
And that's
stop.
even whether the dog's on the leash or
Yep.
not on the leash.
Or if the dog's tied to a pole outside a shop.
Yeah, that's still under your control.
Yep.
Yep.
So almost from the starting point...
So in terms of Cecile has a personal injury claim that she can pursue. She's got an action for the damages that she suffered, and there might be a stress component that needs to get included in that. But then it's really a question of, I don't know whether she has the right to make a claim for the dogs to be destroyed, but that's generally an application taken by council, but we'll talk about it next week.
All right, Cecile, so some detailed answers next week.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you indeed. And look, I wish you all the best. Was your dog okay? You told us about your fingers.
He's okay. That's kind of the problem. He had puncture wounds. And
Right, if
had
he
a bit
was more
bruising.
seriously hurt, they would have taken action against... Okay, I get you now.
According to the vet report, it's not significant enough that they take more action than just an infringement.
All righty. We'll see what happens by next week. Jeff in Mount Macedon, good morning to you, Jeff.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Welcome. I buy and sell records, and obviously I use PayPal as a means of payment.
Yep.
Yes.
Just to cut a very long story short, I sold a record to a person in what turns out England was a forwarding address. He paid via PayPal, €150. Thank you very much. I shipped him the record. He left good feedback. All was well and well. 6 weeks later, I get a thing from PayPal saying there's been a charge back on my account, and the money's been taken out of my account. And I said, well, this is not good. You're supposed to,
What's your dispute resolution process? Yes?
Yeah, exactly. And I said, well, there's nothing to do with us. Well, excuse me, you take a fee of the transaction and you take an exchange fee as well. So therefore you are, in my opinion, liable to have some sort of recourse. Anyway, this goes on for months and months and months. And finally, I actually get my money back. But it doesn't stop there. Because it's a very, very small community, and I'll go online, and it turns out this guy is actually living in Skopje, Macedonia. Now, I've had some friends over there, check him out, yes. He's a very known DJ. Anyhow, he's been buying records from not only me, but maybe 50 or 60 people, and doing the same trick. Now, I try to contact PayPal, and he said, oh, well, it's not your account, we can't do anything. I said, well, it's obvious, this guy, if he's one chargeback, it's okay. But if he's constantly doing that, you should recognize that this is a scam.
And not allow him as a buyer. Yep.
And not allow him as a buyer.
So how can we help you, Jeff?
Well, I actually want PayPal to contact me. I have affidavits from all the people that have been involved. This is running into over 100,000 euros.
Wow.
And he's
Well, that's a
actually
concern.
posting.
That's a concern. But insofar as you are Jeff of Mount Macedon,
Yeah.
and you're owed how much?
Nothing. He's got his money back.
I got my money
You
back.
did get a full refund. What,
Yeah,
if anything, do you think David can help you with today, Jeff? I mean, I'm grateful to you for alerting other people to the scam, but what can David do for you?
Well, I want somebody like the media to actually go, hey, PayPal, you're not honouring all these people. It's obviously a scam. And a lot of people are actually not getting their money back, and he's actually posting all the stolen records on his Instagram account.
So you want
And-
to know if
So Jeff, I would be looking at a social media approach more than anything else. But my question for you, Jeff, is what record's worth €150?
Well, that's nothing nowadays.
No,
Really?
I'm okay. All right.
well, what was it? Sticky fingers with the zip on the cover?
No, it was a Caribbean disco thing.
Caribbean disco.
Okay.
Wow. How
I
much is
just
sticky
think of
fingers?
its rarity factor, John.
How much is sticky fingers with the actual zip on the cover? What's that worth now?
Well, it depends what issue it is.
Rolling
It's all
Stone,
supply
sticky
and demand.
fingers. You don't know.
Well, you can probably pick up a copy for $10, and you probably can buy a rare one for $500.
No. Last time I asked, it was a couple of $100, but mine got knocked off at a party once when I was about 23, so I haven't got it anymore. Anyway, Gary in Geelong, morning to you.
Hello, Gary.
Good morning, David and John.
Far away.
I live on a block. There's two units on the block. I live in the back unit. I'm about 2 to 3 metres away from the fence, and over the fence is a warehouse about 6 metres away. It has it's a storage. It has a warehouse with storage only permit. Going back to middle of 2016, a man wanted to change the permit, and he wanted to have an apprentice training business there. My neighbours and I complained because of the noise factor and all. We had meetings with the council and this man. In August 2016, he withdrew his permit. Now, 3 months later, a man just walked in off the street. The first fellow went through the correct process. We received.
So, Gary, what's the problem?
The council are not giving us a reason as to why the man just walked in, and he can use the warehouse as a steel fabrication business.
Have you had a look, Gary, at the planning scheme to see what he's able to do without a permit?
Yes.
And because my view would be that there are lots of things that could be done in the premises without a permit. They're an as-of-right use under the Greater Geelong Planning Scheme.
But don't you need a permit to run a business?
You don't need a permit for everything. All right. There are under the planning scheme there are 3 uses. There's what's called an as-of-right use. There's a right that you need a permit for, and there's a right that there's a use that's then prohibited. So what you ought to do is have a look at the planning scheme for Greater Geelong, see what the zoning is for the property, and you can do all this online, and then work out whether the use is permitted. Beg your pardon?
It's in the Zone 1 area.
Well, there may be what are called grandfathered or existing use rights, but have a look at the planning scheme, see where his use fits within that scheme and the use rights, and use that as your argument for council.
All right.
It's not that he's carrying on a business that he didn't ask you for a permit. The question is whether he's carrying on a business that requires a permit.
All right. Rudy in Alphington's next. Hello, Rudy.
Hello. Thanks. I'd like to know, regarding hard copy documents, what kind of hard copy documents would still be required to be kept in an office in case the tax office wants to have a look at them down the line sometime?
Probably none. In fact, there are lots of hard copy documents that won't last long enough for a tax audit. You know, you think of things like you go into a petrol station and you buy petrol and they give you a receipt which might last a week and might not.
You mean the ink fades?
Well, the ink fades, yes.
Yep.
So what you're required to do is maintain records, Rudy. There's no requirement that every record you maintain is original. So lots of people, I now conduct most of my practice is now electronic. So I have copies of everything, but the originals get destroyed.
Seats, but what about the reports and things that you just keep all of those in your files, right?
What reports and things? What do you mean?
Oh, I'm just talking about reports from financial reports, if they're not compulsory, that sort of thing.
Well, I keep full sets of financial statements. So
okay,
I keep them, but I don't keep them in hard copy. I keep them all electronically, and
files,
I keep them backed up.
Alrighty.
I keep original deeds or agreements on behalf of clients, and I keep titles,
things that
and
are
wills, and probates, and that kind of stuff. But as a general proposition, the day-to-day elements of the file I just keep electronically.
All right, Rudy, I hope that helps you. Molly and Epping, good morning. You're through to David.
Yes, good morning.
Hi.
We've had a notice from our building society on items of business to be discussed at their next AGM,
Yes.
which includes a proposal to demutualise the company. Now, I wonder what that means, what questions we could ask, and whether, how it affects our funds in the future.
It should make no difference in relation to your funds. At the moment, if you are a member of a mutual, you're a co-owner. But mutuals are really quite an interesting beast, because effectively you're only a member for so long as you, in a sense, pay the fees. Demutualisation is where you turn into a company and you turn your interest as it might be a policyholder or a member of a building society, into a company, and you get shares. So the last really big one was AMP. AMP was owned by the people who owned policies.
Australian Mutual Provident. It used to be called the Mutual was in the name.
Yeah.
Now it's just a company.
Yep. So does that make sense?
Yes. This is trading as a bank, and it's going to become a bank limited.
Well, it may be a requirement. If it wants to convert from a building society to a bank, it may be a requirement of the if it's assuming it's a federally registered bank, it will be a requirement of the bank that of the legislation that it be a body corporate. So there will be a requirement that it turns into a corporation rather than a mutual.
How much money have you got tied up in it, Molly?
Rather not say, but it is funds.
Well, is it a lot of money?
It's a.
Are we talking tens of thousands of dollars?
Possibly.
Yeah, well, it's worth your while getting someone to check that there's nothing shonky going on here. If it was a couple of $100, it wouldn't be worth your while. If it was a couple of thousand, it wouldn't be worth your while. But for tens of thousands, David, do you think it's worth your while just making sure nothing shonky's going on? Because sometimes they're done completely by the book, and sometimes there's a bit of shiftiness going on.
More often than they're completely above board. The question that I would be asking, Molly, is because we're now turning to a profit motive. So instead of when you're a mutual, the rewards you get are in terms of interest rates or benefits. When you are a for-profit organisation, which will be if you become a corporation, is that the profits will go as dividends and not in return to the investors. So one of the things that I would be asking is, what if we demutualise, what's the conversion ratio? How do we move from one to the other? Right.
How do you convert your interest as a holder of a policy to you as the owner of shares? Who gets the shares? What value is given to the shares? What restrictions are put on the sale of the shares? Because you become a shareholder in a company even though you never wanted to be one.
Right. If it's a long-term deposit, is that...
That makes no difference. It's really, you need to look at the demutualisation procedures to find out how your interest converts to equity, and if it's not going to achieve something that you want to achieve, you'd look at taking your money.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Molly.
Okay, thank you very much.
It can be a very complex area. I was peripherally involved in the NRMA, which is like the Sydney equivalent of the RACV.
National Road Motorists Association.
Who tried to demutualise, but... there was such a grassroots rebellion that back then when I was involved, which was more than 20 years ago, they abandoned it.
They did, but they sold a lot of their assets in part of the process.
They then privatised the insurance arm into a standalone business instead, and left the mutual back holding the roadside service side of things. So, yeah, very, very complex areas, something you need to very much watch out about. And Veronica in Fairfield. Hello, Veronica. You'll be our last caller.
Hello. I just wanted to ask David about income protection insurance.
Yes.
I haven't worked for since 2009, and so I've been unwell, and I've always known that my superannuation fund has been taking out money towards income protection.
Yes.
And when I approached them recently to make a claim, they said I think my basic question is, they told me you just submit, what
your claim.
You, and
Veronica, your superannuation fund will be able to give you a copy of the policy that will set out your entitlements and will set out the requirements that you need to meet in order to make the claim or have the claim succeed. I'd have a word of caution in relation to insurance policies that come as part of a superannuation policy. Some of them have over time changed the benefits that accrue. So I had someone a couple of years ago who had an insurance policy that basically said you are entitled to make your loss of income claim if you can't do the job you had when you made the claim. And then when you suffered the loss, not when you made the claim. And there are other policies that now say, I'll give you loss of income cover if you can't do any job. So if you are a concert pianist and you now are working filling boxes in a factory, then the answer would be you're capable of doing a job.
So Veronica needs to get some specific advice on the terms of the individual policy that covers her.
Yes. And all that's right, to everybody. Thank you, John.
Good luck on that. Just before you go, David, we were reflecting before on the suitability to continue as a practitioner of the Supreme Court of a woman who couldn't remember what she did yesterday or who she acted for last year.
Or this afternoon.
The Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Christian Porter, has just announced that due to an office error, his office advised coalition senators yesterday in the Senate to vote the wrong way on the motion moved by Pauline Hanson that it's okay to be white. And he regrets the error which was made in his office due to administrative errors. They voted the wrong way.
Wow, okay.
It's a pretty big admission.
Does that mean it's not okay to be white?
No. It means that they regret having supported Pauline Hanson's call out to white supremacists and neo-Nazis, and they wish they hadn't supported her appeal to neo-Nazis and white supremacists, and something went wrong in the Attorney General's personal office.
So we're not all perfect, even the highest law officer in the land.
Quite extraordinary times. David, thank you.
Thank you, John.
See you next week. David Whiting, our talkback lawyer, helping you with free legal advice, which he will do at 10 o'clock next Tuesday.